So when we left off, Samuel was getting clowned on by the mesmerist. So let's see what happens. Egads, boy, I've never seen such a privileged yet undeserving child. Your mother love for you knows no bounds. Silken trousers as well, can you believe it? This time the stupid fed look left Sammy, and a fearedness and shaming took over. The red from his hair started leaking down onto the rest of his face. His ears started up glowing like hot pokers. But he turned his back to the crowd and started unbuttoning those trousers. He held up once they are all unbuttoned, but the memorist had no mercy on him at all. He waved his cape and said, "Off with the silken trousers." Sammy gave a gulp so loud everyone in the tent heard it. Then he let loose of his pants, and they dropped right round his ankles. The crowd sucked in air, then got real quiet, except for one man who hollered out, "Shucks, if this darn mom loved him so darn much, you think she'd have bought him some kind of underdrawers, silk or not?" The laughs and howls and hoots must have raised the roof of the tent 5 feet, all 'cause Sammy was naked as the day he was born, and he turned red as any cardinal I've ever seen. I'd druther have got floated into the ceiling for 2 hours than to stand like that for 2 seconds. The mesmerist's mouth flew open, and he quick clopped Sammy in the head, then pulled his cape around him and said, "The spell's over. Pull your pants up, you little chowderhead. Have you lost your blasted mind?" After they rough-handed Sammy and booted him out of the tent, the conjurer mesmerized 2 or 3 other folks, but none of them nowhere near as interesting as Sammy. It must have been getting near midnight when me and the preacher left the tent. When we get to the next place, just go along with everything I say and fight that urge of yours to talk so much. Don't open your mouth unless you're spoken to." "Yes, sir." We walked a little ways into the woods and sat on a couple of stumps whilst folks cleared out of the carnival. Finally, the preacher said, "Let's go. And remember, the less you say, the better." Chapter 10. Meeting the real Maui. Me and the preacher wandered around the carnival for about another hour. Then we walked back into the Atlas clearing and headed for a tent where most of the carnival workers were sitting. A big, rough-looking white man with bright red hair stood up and put his hand on the preacher's chest and say, "Show's over, boy. We's pulling up stakes tonight and don't need no more workers." The preacher slapped the man's hand off his chest and stood so his jacket was open and that mystery pistol was showing. He said, "I look like a boy to you? I'm not here about work. I'm looking for the owner. And if you put another hand on me, you'll be pulling back a bloody stump." The tall conjurer man with the 2 sets of eyes jumped up and said, "Hold on a moment, Red. I own this carnival, sir. How may I help you?" The preacher pushed past the red hair man and said, "Sir, I just want to start by telling you what a wonderful carnival you have here." The conjurer reached his hand to the preacher and said, "Why, thank you, sir. Whom do I have the honor of addressing?" "I'm the Right Reverend Deacon Dr. Zachariah Connolly III. A pleasure to meet you, sir." "Reverend Connolly, I'm humbled to meet you in your presence. I am the lowly Charles Mondial Vaughan IV, Knight Commander of the Most Honorable Order of the Bath, knighted a mere 14 years ago." The preacher said, "I'm the only one who's humbled, sir. I've been to many such carnivals and have never seen anything that matches this one. You must be very proud." "Oh, indeed, indeed. I've worked years to assemble this family." The preacher said, "Which is why I wanted to speak with you." The conjurer took a long pull on his cigar and blowed the smoke to the side, then said, "And what may I do you for, sir?" "It's more what I can do for you." "I'm intrigued. Do tell." The preacher pulled me from behind the tent and said, Sir Charles, allow me to introduce the most amazing child who's ever lived in Buxton. Although he was born and reared in Africa, he was lived with me for these past 4 years. Maybe in your travels you've heard of the tribe he's from, the Chakotay's. Sir Charles said, "Can't say that I have. Uh, there's a good re- there's a good reason you haven't. Sad to say, little Abu here is the last surviving member." "Oh, well, Reverend, that is indeed sad, but what does that have to do with my carnival?" The preacher commenced waving his arms, really warming into the tale he's about to spin. "The Chakotay's were fierce warriors who hunted and even fished with nothing but stones. Stone throwing was a skill passed from generation to generation, and little Abo's father, who was the king of the Chakotay's, passed on the secrets of stone hunting and fishing to his son just before he was tragically murdered." The preacher sounded so heart busted about this, even I was getting sad for little Abo. And I know that he was me, and there weren't probably no. And I know that he was me, and that there weren't probably going to be a lick of truth in the whole story. The conjurer said, "Pity that. But what do I understand you to be saying, that this boy can catch a fish underwater by throwing a stone?" The preacher said, "If only we were at a lake so he could show you." The conjurer winked at the big, rough, red-haired white man and said, "If he can do that, he must have an unusual keen eye. Could he, mayhap, demonstrate his skill some other way?" What's going on with my... Whoa. Why isn't this picture showing? Hmm. Uh-oh. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. "Of course he can. I watched your Madame Sabah earlier tonight, and while she was most impressive, I didn't see her doing anything like little Abo could match." "No?" "No. Perhaps we could go to her tent and show you." Well, sir, we're actually preparing to break things down, but I think little Abo might provide an interesting but brief diversion." The preacher, Sir Charles, and the other white man started walking toward the slingshot lady's tent with me trailing behind. The conjurer looked back at me, said loud and slow, "Do you speak any English?" It was kind of hard to look at him with two sets of eyes, but I said, "Why, yes, sir, and some Latin, and I can understand a little Greek." Oops, that must have been too much talking. The preacher gave me a hard look, then told the conjurer, "Plus, of course, he's fluent in Chakotay." One of the conjurer's eyebrows raised up, and he said, "Indeed, to my ear, it sounds as if the boy is very Canadian." "That's because not only is he the best stone flinger since David, he's also uncommonly bright. He lived with me for only 4 years, and he's picked up the language and customs of Canada West so quickly it's truly astounding." All of a sudden, a stranger boy came up alongside of me and gave me some unpleasant looks. His hair was all matted up like a bird's nest, and his clothes were so dirty that not even Cooter would have been caught dead in them. He said, "Who you?" I just about said my name, then remembered what Sammy had told me about not saying Elijah around here. I knowed the boy weren't from Buxton, and I was pretty sure he weren't from Chatham, but I couldn't be total for certain. I thought that'd be best if I didn't take no chances. He was littler than me, and I said, "Why do you want to know?" He said, "Where y'all going?" He sounded American. "Over to the slingshot lady's tent." The boy spit, kicked his bare foot at the dirt, and said, "I knowed it." I could tell he was sizing me up to see if he could lick me. I puffed my chest some whilst we walked. The boy said quiet, "I's the real Maui, but you're fixing to take my place, ain't you?" "What?" "That white boy weren't no good. I sent it. So now Massa Charles looking for you to take my place." He tilted his head toward the conjurer and said, He done told me that he was just for whilst we was in Canada, but I knowed he was lying. Lying about what? You was trying to be the next Maui, ain't you? What? But I'm gonna tell you right now that ain't gonna go going like that. You ain't gonna like roaming about with him one bit. They ain't gonna say nothing at first, but you're gonna have to clean all them animal cages and fetch for him all the times of the day or night. And the gator man gonna beat you every chance he get and gonna be cleaning all their clothes, and they stingy about what they feed you. And if you even ain't got fun after a while getting hit in the face with some of them grapes neither. I said, I'm not taking no one's place. The preacher's just bragging on me so that the man with all those eyes can see how good of a I chunk stones. The boy gave me another look. I said, you travel around here with these people? Of course I do. I told you, I'm the real Maui. Your ma and pa travel with you too? I ain't got no ma. Nor pa. You a orphan? You best watch what you calling me. What a orphan? I said, how old are you? I ain't sure. You ain't had no schooling at all? What I need schooling for? You ask too many questions. Who takes care of you? Massa Charles do. He look after me real good. He done pay more $100 for me in Louisiana. Paid? You a slave? Nah, I seen how slaves get treated. I ain't no slave. You ain't never tried to escape? What you mean? If Massa cut me a loose, what's I gonna eat? What's I gonna sleep? But this is Canada. You ain't about 3 miles from Buxton. You ain't never heard of Buxton? Massa Charles says Buxton, why we have to get a white boy to pretend to be Maui. He say y'all up here gonna think it funny to see me get pelt with no grapes. Now, he sent that white boy, it ain't no good, and now he's gonna try you next. I told him, my mom and pa about to let me travel with no circus. Buxton's my home. We'll stop there for today.